Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting each episode by saying thank you. I feel so very blessed with this podcast. All the people it reaches, all the messages I get on a weekly basis. My objective when I released it was really to guide people on their spiritual journey, and I love the fact I get to do that. My name is Nimesh Radia. I'm your host. I'm an Akashic record reader. I'm an Akashic trainer. I'm a podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love what I get to do. I get to guide people to release their programming, to become their authentic selves, to truly shine the light as it was meant to be. And I love what I get to do. Part of what I also get to do is I get to interview some amazing guests on this podcast. And I'm excited to have Sam join us today. I met Sam relatively recently, and we've connected and definitely aligned souls. Had some healing from him too. And so, yeah, I'm excited to connect with him on this podcast. And Sam, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Nimesh. It's a real pleasure to be here. And yeah, so I'm Sam Kukathas. I am the creator of a technology called Neuroresonance Optimization. And essentially what this is a way to transmute any challenge of the human condition, where I use sound frequencies to be able to connect with the energy which is stored within the body, which is not in harmony with what it is that you want to create. So people come to me for all sorts of things, particularly people who have extraordinary visions for humanity. People who come and say, okay, I've got this vision to lift up the consciousness of the planet, and we're going to impact this space and consciousness of creating sustainable cities. We're going to do this work around creating new healthcare systems. Okay, great. Let's look at what's in the way. And that's where I come in. I use the voice through my I use my voice, and I'm able to transmute whatever is in the way of you being able to create what it is you're here to do. And my company is called Soul Purpose Leaders. And it's a company which I didn't choose. It came to me. It was not the destination I thought I was going to go on. And a lot of you, I imagine, are going on a similar journey where you are discovering that there is something happening within you which is not the place that you thought you'd be going on, and not the journey you thought you'd be going on. And it's a beautiful place to be. It's a very exciting place to be in. And it's a very rich place to be in. So I'm so excited to be in this conversation with you and to see what wants to emerge between Nimesh and I.
Beautiful. I can definitely relate. I mean, I started out in the corporate world very much expecting to stay there and take over the world. And yeah, and who knew I was going to leave the corporate world to kind of create a healing business and do what I love to do. So yeah, so I experienced your sound healing, and actually I have to say it was something I've done a lot of sound healing before, but I've never experienced anything like that. So I'd love to know more about your journey, how you connected with your gifts, and kind of what led you here.
Sure. So I often like to start from the rock bottom moment, because I think it's helpful for people to kind of get, like, everyone starts from somewhere. And often it's in a moment of real darkness that the light can start to shine through again. And for me, that was definitely the case. For years, I had gone through, real challenges with mental health, a lot of grief over a friend dying. And the rock bottom moment for me was when I didn't get my doctorate. And I really didn't know who I would be if I wasn't an academic. I didn't like the person I'd become. And I was pushing people away. And I was living a very hermit-like life. I really barely went outside. I was living in a central London flat. And it occurred to me as a prison. And after 2 years of my brother asking me to do a personal development program, I finally said, okay, yeah, let's do it. And so a few days later, I was in a personal development program, didn't know what on earth I was signing myself up for. And I got access to, this is who I am. I'm not all these stories. I'm not all these identities of anxiety and depression and shyness that I've created. I'm this other thing. I'm this version of me which gets to emerge from this new space. And I then kept cultivating that new space and discovering all the different things which weren't me, all the things which I thought I wasn't interested in, which were a lie. I didn't think I had any interest in leadership, for instance. I'd associated leadership with authority and politics, both of which I wrote about, both of which I was very critical of. So I had no interest in being a leader until I saw, oh, that's just a capacity that we all have. And it's once I saw that, I stepped into that, and I stepped into it in a very big way. And I then got the opportunity to work with leaders who had impacted tens of millions of lives and working very closely with them. And that really had me see, okay, if I can make it work with them, I can work it anywhere. And so I left that environment and I started to get connected with much deeper gifts than I ever thought possible, much bigger than the intellectual side of Sam that I had known and people had known me for. And what happened is essentially I went on a psychedelic journey. It was a guided psychedelic journey. It wasn't just like taking mushrooms in the forest. And in that journey, one of the things that awoken in me was this idea that you're here to heal all the bullshit in the world. And you can do these journeys and you can take them in many different ways. You could go, okay, that's a nice insight, and that's just what happens in a hallucinogenic state. Or you could go, maybe there's something deeper here, which there is to look at. And I took the latter approach and I go, okay, let me see what that means. I think maybe I'm a healer. And then the first opportunity to listen to what the universe had to show me came in about a week later. And it was a message, it was an email actually from a person who had shown up in the journey itself. And he was an energy healer, but I'd also done some of his business programs. And I didn't really like the business programs. I thought they lacked integrity, and I thought there was a lot of waffle. And I told him that in the plant medicine journey.
Nice.
This time, he offered the opportunity to do an energy healing course, which I've been interested in. And I stepped into that. And on the second day, I was getting coached by this person on fear of success. And this pain was basically in my side, and it was excruciating. And I discovered I could heal it and I could transmute it. And as the energy transmuted, I was able to start to channel for the first time. Didn't know what on earth was going on. Started speaking from a different voice and started telling the energy healer that I'd seen him in my plant medicine journey, had done some of his programs, didn't think much of them, and thought he should focus on the healing because he's a great healer. And he took that in and he said, I thought about that and I love the business. And so I'm going to carry on. I'm like, great. But that really awoken something in me. And I saw, okay, it's really easy to get people to peace. You could get people to peace in like 7 minutes with this process. Great. What are we going to do with it? And this is where I started to shift away from what people are doing in energy healing and really stepped into what I could see was more powerful, which was around creating. Because I thought, well, what's the healing for if it's not to create? So I really created a process around helping people create what they want and using the existing tools that I knew around creating and leadership and energy healing to create a different way of helping people access that. And then over time, I got connected with, oh, there's something more I can do here. And another kind of experience where I was literally watching a video and an hour and 36 minutes into watching this video, which I've seen a couple of times, I was like, I feel a frustration. Why can't I do for myself what I do for others? And I remember clapping my hands, creating energy in my hands, and my arms went out like Jesus on a cross. And that's not a word I would have expressed at that time. So to say that is saying something. And I felt this ripple of energy through my fingers. So that was interesting. And the next time I worked with people, these breaths would come through me. And these breaths were expansive. And I used to say, like, my face would look like Voldemort from Harry Potter, where, I'd be, 2 hours with someone, and for an hour and a half, probably my mouth is like this kind of weird expression. But what would happen is I'd be able to clear energy at a physical level within the body. Pain would disappear. I'd be able to, from head to toe, we could clear energy. And it was extremely powerful. And so I just lent into that. And I lent into using that process to be able to help people create what they wanted. And that was the way things went until this new company emerged in a breathwork experience. And I think because I said yes to that, that was when the next stage of what these gifts could be was allowed in. And I was working with someone in a session and lying down in my office on a yoga mat. And they said something like, let all the different parts of you in. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I'm open. So I just basically go, all right, great, let's do that. And then I found myself lying down to sitting upright. And I was not trying to sit upright. And then that happened multiple times where I went from I was lying down to sitting upright. And then my knees started to move out to the left side on its own accord. And I was, moderately freaked out, to be fair, what was going on, because this was a very new experience. And even though I was getting more accustomed to having unusual experiences, this was taking the cake. So I asked very calmly, what is going on? And the woman I was working with said, oh, I think there's an entity in your body which has never experienced a body before, so it's playing with yours. And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't know quite how to take that. And I remember then feeling a clearing in my throat. And after the session, I was a bit concerned. Like, it felt like my spine wasn't my spine. And for 40 minutes, I was like, what's going on? Am I being like attacked by an entity or something like this? And it was all very new. And then it settled down. I felt fine. Next day, it just felt different. And I felt really powerful. And I sent her a message and said, I just feel really powerful. And that was it. And then the next time I worked with people, these sound frequencies started to come through. And, I then worked with someone to hone these gifts where I'd said, look, I want to transform group consciousness. Can you help me? And she said, yeah, we need to be able to expand your energy body beyond your physical body. I didn't know what on earth she meant by that, but she sounded really convincing. And so I was like, all right, I trust that. And conviction is a really powerful thing.
Yep.
For me, her conviction and her belief in me had me step into an entirely different game, different kind of clientele, different kind of investment for people to work with me. And so for her to say that also had me trust that she could help me with that, which turned out to be right. And I would say the gifts expanded hundreds of times over in that process. And then I did a number of other things which allowed for different aspects to come in. Past life regressions, which allowed me to connect with ancient lives, where I could start to connect with melodic aspects of the sound frequencies. So then I created a different aspect to the process and became even more able to fine tune it. And I'm the kind of person who is relentless in growth. So if there's an opportunity to do something which is unusual, which may open up something further, then I'd likely do it. And so that's how it's been, essentially. But that's kind of been the pathway from 2017 to now.
Beautiful, beautiful. And sound is, the spoken word is powerful. And, kind of this podcast, I'll say things like my voice, my gift. And I know that it's not just the words I use, but I know that it's the resonance and the tones, the activations that go with my words. But I'm curious, with the sound that comes through you, how does it feel for you knowing that you can connect to a soul in a different, I'm not going to say better or worse, because who knows, right? But in a different sort of ways than words can, which allows you to connect deeply to people's souls using your sound rather than your words. How does that feel?
Well, in the moment, I'm not really worried about how it feels. It's not like all I'm present to is what's coming through. Like, it's very intuitively guided, and I'm just sensing into what do I feel is going to represent what that person's going through. Like, I literally just got off a 3-hour call, and part of them helping someone through is a level of anger which has been there their entire life and beyond. So I'm tuning into what needs to be expressed through me to help support them to start to feel into a body which has not been avoiding the anger.
Beautiful.
It's been shouting out loud, but the body itself has not been heard.
Yeah.
So I'm giving them that chance to allow the body to really be heard and acknowledged, and that part of them to be welcome. Because usually with anger, what we do is we scream and shout, but that makes no difference in terms of the body's experience. And in fact, we get confused. Why do I keep being angry? I'm shouting, right? But you don't experience being seen and heard. And the body certainly doesn't experience being seen and heard. So it creates more opportunity for you to get angry. And so this is what was happening for this person. They were really getting present to the world of it. And they're asking, why have I been angry? People tell me I was born angry. It's like, yeah, because you've never dealt with it. Yeah. And the thing is, it wasn't your fault. If you were born into the world and you experienced being angry and that's how you're told, then that means you came into the world with a lineage of DNA within your cells, where there's past lives or whatever you want to call it, or ancestors whose anger was not transmuted. And as a consequence, it is passed down to you. And so you're experiencing in your lifetime that anger. And often
Beautiful.
there's going to be things where the anger is yours, and other times it's going to be something beyond that. Usually it's a combination of both.
So beautiful. It's like, so I know when I open someone's Akashic records, in many ways I'm not there as a human. I'm a vessel channeling the message. Whatever comes through comes through. I have no control. I don't filter it. I don't change it. It feels like you do the same with the sound that comes through. It's not the human that's there. It's not present.
Yeah,
You're the vessel that's channeling the message.
that's right. You know, like if I'm in a cognitive space, it's unlikely it's going to be as powerful because then you're in the space of trying to figure something out.
Yeah. Then you're the human, right? Your
Yeah.
human mind, your human ego kicks in the way. So I'm sure there's people listening to this and feeling um, disconnected, maybe feeling like they don't have a gift, maybe feeling like, we're talking to other people, not them, about gifts. And, um, and everyone's kind of got their story about how they connect with the gifts and what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
What would your advice be to someone that's on here that's maybe haven't fully activated the gifts and maybe don't know what the gifts are? And I know it's a transition, I know it's a journey, but what advice would you give somebody who's kind of maybe where you were a few years ago and feeling disconnected?
There are a couple of things. The first thing is you want to understand how much intelligence there is within your body because every frustration that you feel, if you can feel into it, if you can allow it, that's what's going to reveal more. The more you can transmute all of the existing frustrations you might have about not being able to know what your gift is or why you're here or your soul mission or any of these other things, the more these things will start to reveal themselves. The more you keep being frustrated, but don't allow that frustration to be experienced in a way which transmutes it, the less likely you're going to receive the things that you're looking for.
It's,
Because it's almost like we're looking for the next level to show you, oh, yeah, you're ready for that now? Okay, great. Let me show you that now. Right? So that's what I would say.
yeah, it's interesting, right? It's paradoxical. It's that when you can let go, that's when you receive.
Exactly.
And it's easy for us to say. I mean, people on this podcast probably heard me say all the time, it's that if you can ride the wave and just let go and just trust in what's coming next, that's where the beauty is.
Yeah.
But it's also quite hard, right? It's also the human mind wants to know. It wants to control. It doesn't. And this is where I'll talk about, your self-care routine, being in meditation, being in nature, actually allows you to be much more present. And then from there, you can let go of your expectations and then truly receive what you're meant to receive. And I always say, there's nothing is missing. Whatever's for you will find you, and there's a divine timing to it. And I really do feel right now the planet is going through such a massive shift. It's
Yeah.
everybody's feeling something, right? And it feels like it's divinely timed. It feels like anyone that's here is meant to be here. Um, for me, I'm excited, but I also know the human in me is a bit kind of like scared is probably the wrong word, apprehensive, kind of. And I feel like a lot of us are going through that conflict. The spiritual side is excited, the
Mm-hmm.
human side is kind of scared. I feel like we're shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine. And
Mm-hmm.
interesting, most of the guests I have on here are female, so I appreciate the male being here too, even though all have masculine and feminine energy. But I'd love to know more about what are you feeling on the planet? What are you feeling the shift that the planet's going through? Are you seeing that with the clients you have and the people you talk to?
Yeah.
What do you feel the planet's going through?
It's pretty extraordinary. Um, so one of the things I'll say is, the vision I have, and it's not just a vision that comes from like cognitive space. It's a vision which is like transmitted, downloaded, and it comes in on a regular basis. It says, "Okay, Sam, you're here to impact billions of lives." And it's like, okay. And the first time I ever heard that, I think it was 2023. It just felt very grounded. It didn't feel like, oh, that's crazy, right? Just, oh yeah, that sounds about right. And so then I keep allowing myself to lean into what does that look like? And each step of the way, something accelerates and something else gets shown. And it's like, okay, let me lean into that. And something else gets shown. And what happens is the sharing expands as well. So the depth of the vision, I become more free to share it. So what's happened, the last year is like where I was to where I am now. It's like it's just gone off onto like a like an exponential curve, right? Actually, the person who was initially showing me the gift, she was in a group program of mine last year. And at the end, she said, Sam, I want to acknowledge you. When I met you, you were kind of like, just getting started kind of thing. And now you've just got like this, right? And it's like, yeah, like that's the way I live life. It's this kind of exponential, time doesn't exist. It's nonlinear. So we can create from this exponential curve where we get to collapse time to realize vision. And what I've started to do is to share about, I'm here to impact a billion people. And as a consequence of that, because I'm resonating at that frequency in a very grounded way, I meet people who are here to do the same. And so I start to have conversations with those kinds of leaders, and we start to support them with those visions. And the more audacious that I am, the more audacious the people that I meet are as well, right? So I just lean into the audacity. I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and they said, you seem to be operating at a level very different to the Sam Kukathas that I knew a few years ago. It's like, well, thank you for that reflection. I appreciate it. And they're like, what have you done? What's happened? That's happened, and like tell them the journey of, the last couple of years. And they get really curious. And I said, part of it has also been the sharing. Like, yes, I've worked relentlessly on myself to like let go of anything which isn't serving me and anything which is inconsistent with being the person who can impact a billion lives. But I'm also someone who's just, really curious about like what's truly possible for us as humans. And that curiosity is the driver of everything that I create, right? And I see so many extraordinary humans. Like, I would go as far to say as I don't have a conversation in my calendar which is not with someone who was really extraordinary. I don't go, oh God, I got to talk to this person. No, I don't create time to speak to someone who's not up to something which is really worth spending time with. Because the more you're committed to a game where it's impacting a billion lives or more, the more you've got to really be concentrating on, is this going to take that journey forward?
Yeah.
Is me supporting that going to take that forward? And there are certain things which are just really important to me. Like if my family needs my support, that's just like a no-brainer, right? Because they're just, without them, you don't exist. So that's a foundation which is just like a non-negotiable for me, that their love, their support has helped me get to the place where I can actually be this. So me being able to do that in return, yeah. I'll do that in spades. But in terms of it, like my calendar is filled with conversations with people who are doing extraordinary things. And I share the most audacious things. And then they go, oh, I'd like to do that with you. I'd like to support you with this. And sometimes I'm shocked. And now more and more, I'm just like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it.
It's partly because you've opened yourself up, right? It's an interesting, it's an interesting way of being. I know, for example, I'm going to be put in situations, I've certain conversations I'm just meant to have. Like, when we schedule time together, I didn't know you from before. I just like, okay, cool. This feels like a conversation we need to have, and I just trust it. And it's that the more we can let go and just trust that we're going to be put in certain situations. I've let go of that need to control. I've let go of that need to understand who I'm talking to and why I'm talking to them, because we're on this journey, right? And I'm curious. For me, anyone I talked to recently is going through a massive shift. They are going through some sort of upgrade and some sort of, they can, feel it. I can definitely feel the shift that's happening inside me. I feel like I'm going through upgrades. The time we're recording this, I feel there's so much emotion on the planet. I feel like the planet's going through, and I feel it all. And it's an interesting time. I'm really kind of being present with it. And I'm curious, for you personally, do you feel the shift happening inside you? How does that feel for you?
Feels pretty grounded. It's something that, I was creating something recently which was called the State of the World. And essentially what I wanted to do was to honor the fact that a lot of us want to stay in a high vibration. We'll talk about that idea. But we also want to feel what's going on in the world without being disconnected from it. A lot of people, their lives also depend in some respect on being connected with what's going on, what's putting the finger on the pulse. But that doesn't mean they should have to stay in a low vibration because of what's going on in the world. And so I'm a both and person. I like to both be aware of what's going on in the world because my vision is societally based. So if I have no understanding of what's going on in society, then it's going to be really disconnected from what I'm bringing through. But at the same time, I don't want to stay in that space. So I started to create a spoken word, but also with the neuroresonance optimization, which would match onto both of those, because it's like, this is important. I went to an exhibition around the same time at the Tate Modern in London, and it was, my friend and I, we didn't know what we were walking into. It was set in South Africa, and it was a lot of LGBTQ women, a lot of persecution against these women. There was, one particular room where they were showing nude images, and then they were showing the backlash in South Africa from the exhibition of those nude images. Then there was another one where they were showing grave sites where women had been killed as a consequence of their sexuality. This is really big emotions to go through, but I was really grateful to experience them, rather than going, I wish I didn't go into a room which was so energetically charged, because that's just showing the totality of what's going on in the world. But I wouldn't want to have to stay there. I want to be able to experience it fully, but I don't want my energy to stay in that room, right? And so that's just a metaphor in a way for life. We want to be able to acknowledge and experience the pain and the grief and the suffering and the sadness and all these other things, but we want to be able to transmute it and to move into another space. And this is really what I'm creating. Like, the platform that I'm creating is around optimizing life by transmuting any challenge of the human condition. Because what I've seen with the work I do privately within groups is there's pretty much no challenge of the human condition we can't transmute. We just connect with what's there. We look at this, the world of what's created it, and then we bring through the appropriate sounds which match onto the emotions, which will allow for it to transmute. And then we bring through a frequency of love, so we can amplify the level of light which is within the system, within the cells. And when that happens, you start to tap into principles of like quantum physics, unified consciousness, 0 point. Other people talk about like they've connected with the source, they've connected with cosmos, whatever you want to call it. Some people experience things like, I've literally got like the hands of my ancestors around me, or the hands of the creator, or whatever. Like, people have so many different kinds of experiences. But this is what becomes possible when you feel it truly, allow all these parts of you in, no matter what's going on in the external world, and then you transmute it and you allow your essence to shine through.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. It's interesting you talked about being of the world. That's the way I look at it, is that, we're a soul having human experience. You can't bypass the human bit. Honestly, if I could and just live in the spiritual side of stuff, that's exactly what I'd do. But I do feel it's important that we acknowledge the human existence. We acknowledge what's happening on the planet, but at the same time, we don't let it consume us. So that's kind of what I try and do. I try and be aware of what's happening on the planet. I send love to wherever I feel it needs it, but I don't allow the noise and the news and to consume me, because I believe that many of us need to act as that bridge to allow us to guide others, to let people know there's an option, to be that bridge. Whether you call it ascension, whether you call it third dimension or fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it humanly. But I do feel that bridge, and having a foot in both camps is important. It's important for us to be able to guide others through it too. So when I talk about, the type of work that we both do, being bridges, to guide people to their soul and to their spirit, away from their human, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, for sure. I think the word bridge is one which has been really important to me for probably about 1.5 years. And I think when we did the Akashic record reading, you said, "Oh, you're a bridge," and it's like, oh, it's so funny that that's literally the word that you're pulling through, when that's literally the way I've seen it. Right? It's like I've seen a divide in the world of spirituality versus the rest of the world, science versus spiritual. They become like, here's the woo-woo world, here's the real world, or the 3D world, and we use these other terms to like badmouth each other, like as if they don't get it. They don't get it. And as a consequence, you create more polarity in the world. You have this section of like, let's go to the new Earth. Then you have this section over here, let's escape Earth, let's go to Mars. Right? All of them are trying to escape. because there's a sense of not belonging between different kinds of groups, rather than, holy shit, you're just one.
Yeah.
Like, you're just a vibration. You're just a resonance. You're just a series of atoms. You're completely connected. But yet you're creating yourself as if you're untethered. You're creating yourself as if you belong on another planet. And some of you at the spiritual community are creating yourself as you come from another planet, and therefore you're no longer human, and you speak another language which is no longer human.
Yeah.
But and the consequence of doing that, you separate yourself from the human side of you. And so then people don't get you. And then you wonder why you feel like you don't belong.
Yeah.
Because you keep creating yourself in a way which doesn't allow for people to understand you.
It's interesting, right?
For me, is around really creating from a space of groundedness, not from a space of I'm in an ethereal space. Like, people go to ethereal spaces with the work that I do, but they also ground in
Yeah.
to the actuality of what does it look like to create in the here and now if we're here to shift the consciousness of the planet so we can create a world which we actually are really excited about. The new earth is already here. You don't have to go somewhere to find it. It's about finding it from within yourself and finding the peace from within yourself so you can experience it every interaction that you have, which is why when I go out in the world, I have an extraordinary experience of life, independently of what's going on in the world, right? But for that to be what you're experiencing, that's where the bridge gets to be.
And I feel that's a really important message for anyone that's listening, is that, you know, sometimes we feel like we're trying to get somewhere. You know, it's like once I can connect with my guides, or once I can receive messages, then I'll be happy. But it's the reality that, you know, we're a soul that chose to have the human experience. You can't bypass the human experience. You've got to embrace the human experience. And anyone, I'll always smile and look, it's just, who knows if I'm right or wrong. But when someone says they're fully healed, I always kind of have a smile, because I feel like this healing journey is a lifetime thing. It's not our souls picked a journey which we're meant to heal and release karma. And, you know, I feel like many of us need to be that bridge between the two. It's not like I said earlier, if I could just be in the spiritual plane and be in that kind of, then sure, I'd love it. But I also know that I chose to be human. If I didn't want to be in the third dimension, sometimes, then I would have been in the spirit world, right? I would have been a guide for somebody or whatever, right? It's that. So that human experience, I mean, that means that I'm going to go through things. That means that I'm going to experience the human experience. That means I'm going to feel the emotion. Right now, the planet's going through such an emotional shift. I feel that emotion, but I'm meant to.
Yeah.
You can't bypass the human experience. And I feel like that's important for people to hear, is that there isn't, you know, it's like sometimes we're looking for this nirvana, but it's, what if everything we need is here right now? What if we're living in this moment, and, you know, we're trying to wait for when something happens to truly embrace life, when the trick is to embrace life now. That doesn't mean everything's great. It just means that we're experiencing life. I mean, you know, like the client you talked about this morning, and the anger. And if you're feeling angry, feel angry. Don't take it on other people, but feel the emotion. If you're feeling sad, feel it. I mean, it's like, take the male ego as an example. We're not meant to cry, right? We're not meant to show emotion. We're not meant to, you know, we're meant to keep it all in, you know, keep that. And then you add the British angle, you know, stiff upper lip, you know, it's like, but it's, you know, it just makes me laugh, because you got to experience life, right? And there's so much beauty in it.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I'm totally with you. Like, being emotionally connected, there was a time in my life where I got emotionally disconnected, but that wasn't my norm. Being an empath, being emotionally sensitive, these were the norms. There were just things which happened which took me out of life. And as a consequence, the defense mechanism was to take myself out of emotion. And it's been a journey to connect back in the body, because so much of my life I privileged the analytic, privileged the brain, privileged the mind. You know, that's what I wrote about for 20 years. And it's only through letting that go that I could fully embrace all these other aspects of me.
Yeah, so beautiful. And we never talked about this before. I'm kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but is there anything that's coming through you sound-wise that you feel like you want to share with the collective?
I can do that for sure. All right. Okay. So anyone who's listening, I invite you to close your eyes. I want to just connect with this grounding energy to start with. Some of you, this may be something which is really peaceful and opening. Some of you, it might open something up and stir something in you. Whatever it is, just know whatever you hear is perfect for you. Feels like there might have been some letting go which is happening in the field. And I want you to notice if there's anywhere where you feel a little more space or light coming in into your cells, into your body. And if there is, what I invite you to do is just to connect with love for that energy. It might be a particular age which is coming to mind. It might be love for an ancestor. Whatever it is, just allow yourself to connect with that love. And I'm going to bring through this frequency I call a frequency of love just to amplify that light. Feel a very peaceful energy right now in my field. It feels very pristine and clear. So wherever you're at, just know this is just an opening. This is either a space to experience, oh, this is something that I can actually expand upon. This is my natural essence. If there's something which is awoken and it's like, oh, that feels like a tension and I'm not really sure what that is, that's okay. Just know that that's an opportunity for you to go within and to feel deeply. And if you want my support with that, you can obviously reach out to me. I can talk to Nimesh a little bit more about what I've already created, which you can access. But just know that this is a chance to really see what's there. For people, this can be confronting, and that's okay because you've gone through lots of confronting things in your life and you can handle this too. There's nothing that you haven't experienced that hasn't, allowed you to be able to still be here and listening. So you can deal with this too.
Thank you for that. I have to admit, when we were doing some healing together, and I don't know what I expected, but I try not to have any expectations when I go into a healing session. You definitely surprised me with the sound. I have to tell you the truth. I wasn't like I said, I wasn't sure what to expect, but there's a lot of power in your sound, in your voice. I got told that my voice is my gift, and Sam, I'm sure it's the same for you, that your voice is your gift. And I'm really I'm proud of you for activating that gift. And I thank you for sharing on this platform. Like I said, we didn't talk about it beforehand. For anyone that listens to this podcast regularly, I don't plan any episode. Whatever comes through, comes through. So, that healing that came through, I truly hope you can embrace it. Obviously, you can go back and listen to it. And there's a lot of power in your sound there, Sam. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I would definitely recommend going back and listening to that portion again, because especially if you've never experienced anything like that before, it will support you to start to create that repetition, to be able to experience it. newly each time. And the beautiful thing about these sound frequencies is that each time you're listening, you're not the same you're not the same human being. And so your experience can be different. And one of the things that I share in my work is the intention is what guides the experience that shows up within the body. So when I work with people, they'll have an intention of what they're here to create, and then we're looking at what is in the way. So one of my things I've created is from an album called Being One, and it's a piece called Listening from Within. And it's only about 9 minutes long. But the way it works is you set an intention, and as you set that intention, you allow yourself to feel whatever might be blocking you from having that intention already being fulfilled. And then that is what guides you as you listen each time to being able to fulfill on that intention with speed. People have told me that this is the fastest way to access source. So, I'm sure we can share in the notes or whatever way you can find that later on, but just kind of flagging that so you know that there is a space you can go to from here, especially if something's awoken or if something's kind of showed up for you and you want to see, like, how can I get some support? Like, we can support you with that, right?
Beautiful. We can definitely include that in the show notes. Any links you want to provide, and it's so beautiful. And actually, what you said is really important. Our intention is so important. Our intention on a day-to-day basis. If anyone that works with me, for example, I always ask what's their intention, because I'm not here to fix anybody. So if you're looking for somebody to fix you, then that's not me. And actually, nobody that comes to me wants to be fixed. But it's really important. It's that, why are you doing something? If you're creating a business, what's your intention? And switch from I think to I feel. How do you feel about something? What's your intention? Is that, and if you're rigid with how that intention is going to get delivered, again, I feel like you're going to get disappointed. So, it's something so simple. What's your intention? And then what if you could work towards it? Sure, do some activity, but let go of how it's going to be delivered. Can you do that? How does that feel? I do feel like we've been pushed to trust and ride this wave so much more than ever before. I feel like the human in us is in conflict with the spiritual in us. The spiritual enough is our spiritual self is super ready for this. They've been waiting. It's kind of like we work in many lifetimes. The human in us is like, wait, what? Wait, what's happening? It's kind of like wanting to know, wanting to put things in a box.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting time. And so, Sam, as we close out this episode, I'd love to hear more about any advice you have for people that's going through this transition, but also what are you working on next? What's next for Sam in this role?
Yeah. So there's a couple of pieces of advice. The first thing is get really interested in what you really care about and what you're here to do from what is now. Don't try to figure out what's 10 years from now necessarily. Like, that might be what comes through, but just allow yourself to feel what's now, because we're only living in now. Everything else is this illusion that we've created, and we can create a future which is exciting as well. So get connected to that. Write out what are the things which are in the way. Like, what are the concerns? What are the fears? What are the recurring thoughts? And get clear on that. And then start to allow yourself to feel each of them. Feel what it feels like within your body and connect with that. And start to create space on a daily basis to go through those and feel them as they are. Don't try and change them. Just create space for them. And initially, this might be really challenging. And certainly it's a lot easier with the sound frequencies to be able to do this. But just to build that muscle, the same way that you build muscle at the gym, build up muscle in other kinds of repetitions of doing your meditations, build this muscle. Because if you can do that, you're going to be able to amplify what you're up to in a speed which is far beyond what you think. The second thing I would say is get a mentor. Get the best mentor you can get who is most aligned with you. Choose those who are most aligned. Make sure it's aligned. If it's not aligned, don't do it. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in mentorship, and not every mentor that I invested in was aligned. Sometimes the reason I chose a mentor is because I thought the name was a reason. Now, I had that when I was an academic. I worked with some of the leading philosophers of law, legal scholars in the world, and they were some of the worst mentors that you could ever have. So alignment in any kind of mentorship is key. Do they resonate with me? Do they get me? Do they understand what I'm here to create or what's important to me? If the answer is no, move along. There are so many different people that can support you in your journey. Right?
So beautiful. That resonates with me so much. I'll always say, anyone that's your mentor is a soul contract. It's a hard decision. It's what do you feel about somebody? That's where the decision comes from. It's your intention and then your connection at a soul and a heart level. Because your brain is going to want to think, I'm up the best. Sam says the best one. That must mean the best references, the best name. I totally resonate with Sam saying it's a hard decision. It's a soul contract. So thank you for saying that.
Yep, of course. And in terms of what I'm up to now, so I get to work with some extraordinary human beings who are really here to make an unbelievable impact on the planet. They have audacious visions for humanity. Some of you who might be listening might be some of those people, right? You're not just here to impact millions, you're here to impact hundreds of millions, if not billions. And you are the kind of person who wakes up with this and you go to sleep with this. And there's a hunger and there's a relentlessness towards it in terms of being able to create that because you see the possibility. That's the people that I work with. They're really resourceful in terms of their ability to invest in themselves. They are expansive in terms of what they've already done in terms of human consciousness. And they are here to make an impact on the planet, which is truly extraordinary and remarkable in the fastest way possible in this lifetime and not in another. So that's part of what I do. What I also am creating, I've alluded to this a little bit, is I'm creating a platform or an app which will be around transmuting any challenge of the human condition. This is something that we're going to launch later this year. And our goal is to be able to impact 1 billion lives through it within the next 10 years. And what it will be over time is an opportunity to go through a series of different kinds of programs which will support people in any challenge of the human condition. Things like, for instance, people have so many issues around their gut. Well, what hasn't been digested within their lifetime, which needs to be digested, that if that was digested, they wouldn't be dealing with the issues with their gut. And this is something that I've had the experience of doing with clients. And so, well, what if we could do that not just with my help, but also in conjunction with gastroenterologists and nutritionists? So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is the aspects of society. What is going on in terms of harmonizing the planet, which we talked a little bit about? Well, there's a lot of anxiety about things like climate and the planet and sustainability. Well, let's allow ourselves to experience that. And so we can release it and create something new from that space. So that's another aspect of it. There's a lot of work around the world of manifestation, high performance. So one of the existing meditations that I've created is one that we're going to explore not just with organizations, but really for anyone in the elevate consciousness space. And what it does is in about 15 minutes, you go from creating this intention to going through a space where you can actually see that intention being fulfilled. And so it's really creating a new world around the world of flow. Flow is being seen very scientifically in terms of it's all about acting to get into flow, right? There's a lot of efforting involved to get into flow, right? This is not how flow is. That's one way of looking at flow, but the way I understand flow is a prior state, which is activated within your cells, and then you get to choose to act from flow. It's the same with confidence. People say confidence is something which happens through acting. You get up on stage and you gain the confidence by doing it repeatedly. Great. You can do it that way. That is also an option, but it's not the only way. You can create confidence as a prior state within the cells by activating it, and then you can act from confidence. So we're really looking to revolutionize states of being which people have thought could only occur through acting prior, rather than experiencing the shift in being gets to happen prior to actually having to do anything, right? And then you get to be and act from that space. So this is some of what I'm up to. Another thing we're looking to do, and I was going to touch on, is we're really here to commit to transforming politics. There's an opportunity right now to shift the vibration of the planet, and politics plays a really key role in what the world looks like. So we're having discussions at the moment around investment to transform politics, working with heads of state to be able to shift the vibration from one of fear and scarcity to one of love and abundance and peace. Because if we're going to have a world where war is ended, it's going to be extremely difficult to have that happen unless politics also plays a key role. If you wanted to say, how do you solve $1 trillion problem? Well, first of all, you start to cut out the middleman. You cut out those who are actually saying war is a part of the solution for them. War is part of the way in which they create peace, right? It's absurdity. If you wanted to look at how you deal with immigration, well, one of the ways to deal with immigration is to have no war, because then you don't have the displacement of people. But you don't see politicians talking about it because they don't connect to the two things. So they create a future where they're still dealing with the same problem around immigration because they're looking from the wrong place. So my intention is to be able to support them both through the work that I create through Neuroresonance Optimization, but also working with leaders around the world, working at different kinds of wellness hubs and somatic spaces to be able to show them a different way and then bring in the experts who are looking to solve the most world's challenging problems and help them as a collaboration to start to do that. So that's what I'm up to.
Wow. Just a few things then. So I'll include Sam's details in the show notes. He's definitely shifting and definitely going through and going to create some amazing things. So I'd advise you to follow him. If his voice resonates, then reach out to him and, just trust in your instincts, is like I always say. And I would agree that, look, through this shift, and if you're going through some sort of shift, don't do it alone. Just sometimes we feel like we need to go through this journey on our own. And if we're going through something spiritual, it needs to be done. You have soul contracts out there, people to guide you, maybe communities. It does feel like a really kind of a time where so many of us are going through an upgrade, and don't do it alone. So Sam's voice resonates, and reach out. My voice resonates, and reach out. There's a lot of co-creation happening right now. So Sam, thank you for being in the space. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your sound. It's so healing. You're a blessing to the world. I'm glad I met you. I'm glad you joined me on this platform, and I'm sure all the listeners are excited to see and hear more from you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending so much love and light out to all our listeners. And Sam, I'm going to ask you to close us out.
Nimesh, thank you so much for the opportunity to to meet you, to be guided by you with the Akashic Record, to give me the chance to do that work with you, and to have me here as a guest. It's been a beautiful experience, and I love the fact that we've just co-created from a space of just feeling into what wants to come through. That's how I feel intuitively. We actually really activate our gifts in a much deeper way. So we just feel into and intuit rather than trying to figure it out.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending love and light out. Bye for now.